2018 has been year of floods. That is, floods came this way, floods came that way, floods came in those areas where the rainfall was high, floods came in those areas where the rainfall was very low, floods came in those all areas where the rainfall never used to take place, Jaisalmer. So floods have been all that have been ruling the newspaper headlines this time. We do expect that the questions on floods can go on to be of varied type. It's not going to be of any conventional type at all, like what can be the causes of floods. It can never be. It may be related to the constructive effects of the floods. It may be associated with the prediction of the floods. It may be associated with why is it that Kerala went on to flood. It may be associated with the regions associated with floods as a disaster, and how is it that it can go on to be mitigated in one way or the other. Now we are going to be taking almost every aspect of this flood which can be significant from this point of view in the examination. That's what exactly that we go on to aim to do for also. The first of this type of a question, that is question number 32 on floods, is going to be floods are not always destructive. Now, we are not talking about anything that is on GS, but in general studies itself, there can be a type of a question that can possibly be framed and ask linking floods with environmental ethics. That's something that can happen. So, coming on to that part, floods are not always bad. They are a constructive, ecological and a social process. That means the perspective of floods. That's a new perspective. And that new perspective is, that is, floods are a constructive process. First is, they are a constructive geological process. And when we're going to be talking about it's a constructive geological process, meaning that floods are bound to take place. As long as the rivers will be there, there will be floods. As long as the rivers go on to deposit, there will be floods. As long as the rivers come down from the mountains, there will be floods. As long as the rivers will be charged with nutrients, there will be floods. It's our mindset that goes on to be calling all of this inundation as flood. It's not always so. There is not every time that it is going to be a destructive process. And to think of it, that is, it must have taken no less than something like some millions of floods that Gangetic Plain has gone on to evolve. Had floods not taken place, there was no way that the Gangetic Plain would have evolved as a region, and absolutely not possible that the Gangetic Plain would have existed also in this place. So it's a constructive geological process. The second is that the floods deposit alluvium. They deposit alluvium, and they also deposit nutrient-rich sediments. Now, if you don't want to use any amount of fertilizer, of course, we don't have to do anything at all. There is the rivers will go on to bring in enough amount of nutrients so that they will be in a position to lay a layer of they will be able to lay down a layer of very fertile sediments on the top of it. That's largely because they are going to be really nutrient-rich sediments. Of course, they deposit alluvium. So Gangetic Plain, people have started using a good amount of such type of nutrients, largely because a good amount of nutrients have been locked. Even in Punjab and Haryana, where the rivers used to flood and they used to put a layer of a very nutrient-rich sediments, that has been prevented. People have started using chemical fertilizers. Now, chemical fertilizers have been all in all a Western concept of how exactly the nutrient status of the soil can be enriched. Floods are also responsible for the removal of agricultural waste and toxins. Anywhere where floods take place. For example, just think of it, that is, even in Delhi, floods, Yamuna goes on to get flooded, all of those agricultural waste and toxins from the river will be carried out. And the river will go on to take a very clean look for some amount of a time. Any of this place over which the rivers go on to pass through, any place over which the rivers go on to pass, they are responsible for removing such type of an agricultural waste. And of course, they're going to reduce the toxicity as well. Floods are a cleaning mechanism of the environment. Without floods, no cleaning can take place. The fourth is it recharges groundwater. Nothing to say except for the fact that it is flood water that is responsible for seeping itself. If it is going to be, let's say, there is going to be a plain, and if the rivers have got itself flooded, that is how they're going to move into the water table. And as they're going to move into the water table, they are responsible for recharging the water table. The fifth is floods prevent deltaic erosion. They also go on to protect the coast from longshore currents. Now we are talking about deltaic erosion. That means the flood water must go on to flow in a river. That is, the floods must go on to flow in a river. And when they go and drain themselves out into the river, near to the coastal regions, near to the delta regions, they go on to push the waves back. They keep on pushing the waves back. Because if the river water that is being carried, that is not going to be so high, it will not be in a position to push these currents back. Supposing they are not able to push the currents back, then what will happen is that the currents will be stronger, the sea water will be stronger, and these stronger sea waters and currents will be able to completely erode the coastal regions. So they prevent coastal erosion taking place. Also, any amount of erosion that can going to take place because of longshore currents, that is also going to be prevented. The sixth is floods support biodiversity. Floods support biodiversity, and they go on to support biodiversity by preventing desertification. When we are talking about supporting biodiversity, greater the amount of flood, greater the number of species. We are talking about preventing desertification. That means the desert-like conditions will be prevented. And if the biological productivity of the region goes on to increase, the number of species will also go on to increase. If the biological productivity increases, the number of species will also go on to show an increase. And it is this number of increase in the species is responsible for increasing the biodiversity, and that is by the prevention of desertification. The seventh is floods are responsible for they prevent large scale sea transgression, that is Why? Because they are not in a position to allow the seawater to come back. They keep on pushing it away. The runoff will be strong enough so that they will go on to keep on pushing it beyond. Seawater transgression is not going to be an easy job in this case at all. Floods are also responsible for they will go on to not deprive the nutrient supply and marine productivity increases. That means they will go on to increase marine productivity. Now, when we are talking about increasing marine productivity, then this increase in marine productivity takes place only because so much amount of nutrient from the land goes on to get itself washed. All the nutrient that goes on to get itself washed and reaches the sea, these are the only nutrients that the sea can go on to have. Sea doesn't going to be having its own nutrients and it is only going to be in the coastal zones, in the littoral zones, that the region is going to be very, very rich in terms of these type of nutrients. It is these nutrients that are responsible for increasing marine productivity. It is these nutrients which are responsible for also helping marine life. Without floods, there will be no marine life at all in this region. Without a runoff finding its way into the sea, there can't be any type of a marine life at all in this place. Ninth is going to be floods affect monsoons. Now, that may go on to seem far-fetched, but that is going to be 100% correct. That is, what floods go on to do is, that floods go on to take a good amount of fresh water to the sea. If the fresh water is going to be taken to the sea, then the amount of evaporation from the sea goes on to increase. It is this increased evaporation that is picked up by the monsoon winds. All of those evaporated winds find their way into the monsoons, and when they come back to the land. So they come back to the land thereafter and after some time. Supposing you go on to dam the river, supposing you go on to inlink the river and you do not go on to allow the water to reach to the sea. If you are not in a position to allow the water to reach to the sea, what will go on to happen is, in the absence of water not able to reach the sea, the salinity of the sea water will increase. If the salinity increases, the evaporation decreases. And if the evaporation decreases, a decrease in evaporation will go on to mean that the monsoon winds will not go on to have so much amount of moisture, and the entire of the rains will go on to get affected. So we may be trying to be very, very smart by interlinking the rivers, but the nature will go on to punish you in a one way or the other. That's the reason that we're going to say that nature knows best. Don't tinker with nature at all. So floods, any perception anyone can go on to have, that can go on to be dispelled. Floods are a constructive geological process. Floods must go on to take place, and it is people who go on to make floods out of nothing. It's not the fault of the river. River has a way. Stay out of the river. If you don't stay out of the river, then it will go on to get flooded.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.